Hey friends, Mike Carlin's Peak Realty. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can do me a favor, like and subscribe, so whenever new videos come out, you will be notified. And this video is going to be about building a house. So this one is assuming you've already purchased the land and you have decided to, quote, build the house yourself. So what does that entail, building a house yourself? Well, it's actually organizing the contractors, the subcontractors, getting all the materials together and overseeing everything, and basically being the manager of the building process, along with there's always seems to be miscellaneous things that don't fall into any one particular category. A lot of cleanup stuff and always some minor stuff and running out for materials that need to be done. So what are the steps involved in doing this from start to finish? Well, step one, getting the blueprints. So you need to figure out, obviously what you're going to build, what house you're going to build. Now, for getting the blueprints, you can either purchase stuff online, find some blueprints you like. You can make minor modifications to them, or you could actually design your own house completely from start to finish. Whether you kind of sketch to get some ideas and then sit down with an architect or draftsperson to finalize it. So however you do it, you just need to get a good set of plans that are drawn, and make sure it's drawn in a way that is normal for your area, because a lot of the online plans could have things like basements, which are just not done anymore around here, or different types of foundations. Some of the foundations like these, I think, monolithic slabs, some things that I've seen build in other areas or done in other areas, but just are not done around here. So, and one thing to note when you're getting the plans drawn is the difference between a draftsperson and an architect. Now, they both draw plans, but a draftsperson is going to be way less expensive because they are not like a certified architect. They don't have as much education in it as the architect. So really, I guess it depends what you're looking to do, because obviously somebody who's an architect is going to have better advice and can help with a lot of different issues that can come up, but it may be you just don't need those services, so it's not worth paying for. Now, once you have the blueprints in hand, you're going to want to have several copies. You need to take a copy to a surveyor so they can draw your site plan, where they're actually going to draw the blueprint or the footing foundation of the house on the site itself. So you will need that to get your permit, because you got to bring that to the zoning board and stuff so they can see where it sits in there and make sure the setbacks are correct. In addition, of course, when you go to start building, you're going to want to know where on the lot you're actually putting the house. So then you're getting that done, the surveyors are working on the site plan. In the meantime, you can be taking those blueprints to all the subcontractors and suppliers that you're going to be using. So getting prices from everybody. So before you even get started, you want to know in your head, okay, here's who I'm ordering materials from, here is all the contractors I'm using, so you can have it all organized so that it'll flow a lot better if you know everybody beforehand and you're not trying to kind of wing it. Then you will, of course, once you get the site plan done, you go in, you get your building permit. Now, understanding you are typically getting the building permit just for the overall construction. Now, the subcontractors, such as electrical, HVAC, plumbing, they are in charge of getting their own permits. So if you talk to a subcontractor and they talk about you trying to pull a permit, I would get a little nervous about whether they're properly licensed or not. Now, once you've got all that stuff in place, you've got your permit, you're ready to go, then you need to, actually I digress, even before you're ready to go, you could get the site permit. So if the site needs any kind of site work, such as knocking down trees, getting some sort of driveway put in. Now, you don't want to do your final concrete driveway, but you could do some kind of rocks or crushed stone, that kind of thing, just because you have a lot of trucks coming in and out. So you need a way that people can access the property, not get stuck, park there while they're working, and then get out. and keeping in mind there will be some big trucks delivering things like the roofing, the wallboard, that kind of thing. So now foundation would be step one once we've got, all this other stuff ready to go. Now with the foundation, you have choices whether you want to get a company that does the complete foundation turnkey, or whether you even want to break that down and subcontract that out to individual contractors, because you could get somebody different to do the footings, the block work, and then the people at the block work who do the block work, in general, they're going to have machines there to help do put the sand and the filler in there. But if you're doing a house on a slab rather than a crawl space, then that's another person who will come and do the finished concrete work. Though they can't be the same. It can be the same person who did the footings with that. So you come in, put the foundation. Step one, dig footings. The footings are just a hole that's in the ground that you pour concrete into, that everything's going to be built on top of. Once the footings get put in, another note in there is inspections. So that would be the first inspection, is when you dig that hole before the concrete gets poured. They want to come inspect the hole itself to make sure it's done properly and it's going to support the house. So the only way around the city or county inspection is you can't actually get engineers to come in and oversee stuff and inspect it for you, but typically you would go, your city or your county. And I can tell you that's been the biggest source of frustration, is those footings, and if you get those footings, you dig them, and then you just got to sit there and wait on the inspector before you can pour the concrete. So if you got rain coming, it can be a scary process, or we've had it where it's been rained on and then we got to pump it back out. So it just can make for a lot of extra work because of the timing of the inspectors. Now once the footings are poured, then typically I would get a surveyor out there to do block points for you, because that way the surveyor can they put a nail in the concrete with a little colored ribbon thing that shows the people exactly where the corner of the block work should be, so that the house stays square to itself, so everything is done properly. Now next they'll do the block work, and then again, depends if it's a slab or a crawl space. If you are building a house on a slab, then before you actually pour the slab, you will want to do termite treatment typically, though you do have the option of treating the wood afterwards. But anything that's going to go under or through the slab, you want to get set in place before they pour the concrete. So definitely plumbing, possibly electrical. For instance, if there is electrical, a floor outlet you want in somewhere, or an island that you're going to want to run electrical to, that's the kind of thing you'd want to run beforehand. Don't see much HVAC in the foundations. Used to see ductwork in there years ago, but I haven't seen that in a while. Occasionally you'll see like a downdraft vent fan from like a Gen-Air type oven. So just think about all that stuff, because while it's possible to add the stuff in later, you can always go back and bust up concrete or dig around. It's just a pain. So better to do it right at the beginning. Then once you've got the foundation done, so if you get your slab, at that point you pour the slab. If it's a crawl space, then once the crawl space is done, sand's put in. Same thing, once the sand's put in, you would do your termite treatment. Normally they'll just do a perimeter treatment and then treat around the piers themselves. Then you bring your framer in. So a framer comes in, you are in charge of the lumber, so you would have had the lumber package delivered, gotten all that scheduled. Framer comes in, starts doing their thing, and that's the exciting part. That's when the house actually gets built. So it happens surprisingly quickly, but I mean, that's, it's not the whole house, but it's really when you start to see the structure of the house. That's probably the most exciting part of the building process. Now the framer is going to take care of the exterior doors, the exterior windows. Typically it's the same crew, or sometimes they bring in a sub crew to do the exterior trim around the top of the house too. And once the framer's done, you're going to want to get the roofer on it as quickly as possible, because we want to get the house dried in. So the roofer will come in, if they're super busy, sometimes they'll come in and they'll just put the tar paper down, which is fine because at least it's waterproof. Then you're also going to want to get the siding done, though it's not atypical for the house to just be wrapped with a house wrap and not have siding put on immediately, but that's usually good enough to keep it dried in and moisture out to where you can continue on with all the rest of the interior process. So once all that is done, doors, windows, it's all framed, roofs on, siding or house wraps on, then you're going to bring in the subcontractors, your plumber, your electricians, and your HVAC contractors. Typically you want to start with the HVAC contractors because they're putting in the biggest things. So understand all of these subs, they're getting something from point A to point B and trying to figure out the best way to route it without doing minimal damage to the structure of the house. So with the HVAC people, they have the biggest lines that need to be run through stuff, so you want to give them the most options for getting from point A to point B. Then the plumbers would be typically next, and the electricians, I've seen them working together in the same house that can get on top of each other, and you really want to try to keep the subcontractors, give them their own time in the house, try to keep them apart just so that people don't get frustrated and they don't get on top of each other. So we've run through all them. They would be in charge again of calling in for their own inspections, for their rough-in inspection. So once those three contractors are done, the next step would be getting the insulation put up. And now the inspections are going to vary with this. So I've seen some places that they have framing inspections, like they actually have to look at the nail pattern for like the roof and stuff like that. I've seen places where you don't get a framing inspection until the insulation's up, and then they just come through and do a framing insulation inspection and look at everything, and that's after all the other rough-ins inspections are done. So it's going to vary by locality, but you're going to get some sort of framing, some sort of insulation inspection. Then once the insulation goes in, it's time for the wall board. You would a lot of times during the inspection, when the day this inspection is scheduled, whatever, it might be the day that you're getting the wall board delivered. So keep in mind all this stuff, like there's a lot of things that there may be sort of some overlap, and you're trying to get this done as quickly as possible. So you're trying to get everything scheduled out, and so that there's no gaps. There's no days when the house is just sitting with nothing happening. Now that's got to happen, but the goal is to try to avoid as much of that as possible. So we got the wallboard delivered, whether it's plaster or drywall, it doesn't really matter, but either way, same process. So that is one of those other things that there are companies that turnkey. They'll just do everything. You just say, I want wallboard put up, I want plaster put up. They'll come in, they'll bring the board out, they'll hang it, they'll finish it, done deal. Or you can subcontract all that stuff out where you supply the wallboard, you bring in hangers, then you find a separate finisher, and it can save a little money and give you a little more control, or but though it can be a little more frustrating because it's another subcontractor who you have to deal with and schedule. So once that is done, then you are going to bring in your interior trim carpenter. So and this is assuming that all the trim is painted. I haven't seen too many stained houses lately. If the house is stained, then you're going to want to go through and actually paint stuff beforehand because you don't want to bring in that same wood. But fairly typically nowadays, everything's painted. So the trim guy comes in, the trim carpenter comes in, does all the baseboards, sets all the interior doors, the crown molding, anything, whatever kind of trim work you're getting done. They would be in charge of that, and then once that is done, it's not going to be 100%. There are always going to be some leftover stuff because they got to cut in where cabinets come in, and then there could be some trim work after flooring, that kind of thing. But it's 90% done. That's when you bring in the painter. Painter comes in and will then paint everything. Typically, they're just going to spray everything. So spray everything, put a good coat, and then either spray or brush all the trim work and get everything looking pretty. So then once that's done, then your next step will be to bring in the cabinets. So you're going to get the cabinets installed, then the countertops. Now with solid surface countertops, typically people will not want to measure that or not want to make those until the cabinets are actually installed because they want to make sure it's 100% right. So that can be a slight delay there. But yeah, cabinets, then countertops, and then once that's done, then you bring in your HVAC and flooring contractor, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical contractor again to do their finals. So they come in, that's when they're putting in all the outlets and stuff like that. The HVAC, they're putting up the vents and all the finishing touches. Plumbers are putting up fixtures, all that kind of stuff. So you bring in them, and in that case, the order doesn't matter as much. But again, better to try to give each contractor their own day so that they're not on top of each other if you could at all avoid it. So once that's all done, there are their inspections as well that they're going to take care of, so they'll call in their final inspections, and then all this stuff, I say they're taking care of it, but of course as a general contractor, as the builder, you're in charge of overseeing everything. The buck stops here, so you want to make sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing and it's being taken care of. Once that's done, then the flooring. That's when the flooring is going to come in and get all flooring. That's one of those things, like the flooring and the exterior concrete, you want to try to push it as long as possible, because what you don't want to do is have a whole lot of people just tracking across the new floor or have a bunch of big vehicles driving on new concrete. So flooring comes in, and then the house is getting pretty close. I mean, by this time, all the siding, all the exterior stuff should have been done. Sometimes there's little railing stuff outside. Your interior trim carpenter can do stuff with that, or you may bring in another carpenter to do that work. If you're getting a deck built, at some point in time you may be doing the deck work out there too, again saving it towards the end. And then you're going to get all that extra concrete done, driveway, sidewalks, get all that stuff in. At some point during this process, one thing I left off was the overhead garage door, and that's one of those things that can be done sort of towards the end, but really you're just going to wait until the slab is done in the garage, and usually I like to wait until the painting is done so you don't get a bunch of overspray and stuff on there. And then pretty much, you've got your trim carpenter's going to have a little bit of stuff to do. There'll always be some paint touch-ups to do throughout, but now we've got the completed house. We've got our, got all the interior finishes done. So it's pretty much, got your concrete in, then I guess it's just landscaping. You've got to get the yard kind of graded a certain way so that the water flows properly away from the house. Final permits. And then planning the party to move in. So that is pretty much the whole process in a nutshell. There's obviously, different localities may have some slight variety there, and individual builders may have slightly different opinions, but in a nutshell, that's it, building a house from the ground up. So again, Mike Carlin's Peak Realty. If you like this video, be sure to hit the bell, like, subscribe. Want to be alerted with new videos, and it helps me out when you like and subscribe to the videos as well.